Ois Daled. So the Rebbe explained that just like we have the two levels of Lamailo Mailo Adin Ketz, which is the spirituality, the highest level, the level of Atzilus, and with it in Olam, the desire to go out of the Mitzias, and then you have Lamata Mata Adin Tachlis, that the Hamshocha comes down, whether it's Biyah or into the Kalim, the Mitzias of that world. The Rebbe explained earlier that the same thing is in Avodah Sa'odom, the two levels of Torah umitzvahs. Torah is the seichel, godly seichel that comes down lamata mato ad ein tachlis, and tefillah is the level of elevating yourself ad ein ketz to the highest level. And earlier, the Rebbe explained that this ability to go up l'mayla mayla ad ein ketz is even in the olam tachtonim. The Rebbe says the same thing is with tefillah. Even somebody who is on a very low level in Elam has the ability to go up l'mayla mayla dein kates to reach to the highest level. Look inside, Dalit. Hine k'may sheho inyan de l'mayla ad ein ketz hu gam be'olamais hatachtonim. Just like the idea of higher to no end, when we talk about the level in the uh, of that Hashem's greatness, the Eir has no end higher, and that explained before Hugam be'olam is hatachtonim, that even in the lower worlds have an appreciation, and by them too is the idea of wanting to go up Adin Ketz, Commission is by Lil Sibes, as explained earlier in Sibes, Shagam Bahanivroyim Dibiyah, that even in the creation of Brit Yasira, which is the Mata Mata, basically, but even in them, Bafilu Bahanivroyim Shabelam has even within Biyah specifically, even in the lowest level, in the creations who are in this world, Meir Bahem Hareimemos the Oirin Sof. So by them shines the exaltness of the Ein Sof. They have a glimpse of the Ein Sof Ed Ein Ketz, which brings them to wanting to elevate themselves to the level of Ad Ein Ketz, Lamaila Ein Ketz. And they really realize Shekol Ha'olam Eisheim Be'ein Aroich, that all the worlds are uncomparable, and considered like nothing legabe Yisbarach, relative to Hashem Blessed. And that fact that they have a glimpse shines by them. The Reimemus, the exaltness, that's the way by them becomes that running, that desire, that want for godliness, that they want to go out from the mitzias. So that we spoke about generally, that the Lamaila den Ketz is felt even in the lowest of the world, even the Lamata den Tachlis in Biyah, in Elam Hazi, in the Nivroim, they sense the Remimus, and they therefore want to go out the mitzias. The equivalent is by davening, that the davening, even if at the time that the person is on a very low level, he still has that desire to go up to the highest level. Similarly, is also by the elevation of the davening, which is similar to the idea of higher than no end, because the davening leads up the person to the highest level. So when we do the avodas hatfila, which is the equivalent of l'mayla the gets, as opposed to Torah, as we said before, which is the mata. This is l'mayla. The gam kisha ha'odam hu mata adein tachlis. That even if the person is low, there is no finish, which means he's very, very low. Even in that madrege, hine al yidei hatefilo hu misalo. So through the davening, he's elevated, which means hainu shuberot shuka lailos lamay den cares that he has that desire and the yearning to go up higher to no end. Even from the lowest level, you still have that desire when you daven to go up to the highest level. Or as the pasuk says that it's sulam mutzav arza v'roishay magia shamaymo. Pasuk says by Yaakov that he was dreaming and there was a ladder that was stationed on the ground, and the top of it reaches all the way to Shemaima. So we find in the Zohar sulam dot sloisa. This ladder, this is the davening. So you have a ladder that a person could be all the ways on the arza. The ladder could be always on the bottom. And yet that ladder, you climb it, you go all the way up, you go all the ways up to Shemaima. The gam kishaha'odam hu bedarga achi tachtoina. Arza, even when the person is on a very low step, which is arza, alidei hasulam de tefillah, through the ladder of davening, hu magia va'ila hashamayma. He reaches and he goes up all the ways to the sky, to the heavens. Hello, but how does the person get to want to go up on this ladder, to want to go up? If he's so low, he doesn't realize that he is low. So the first thing is the person's lowness, he has to come to the recognition, the appreciation that he's in that he is in a low level, so that he'd want to go up. Because if he doesn't even know that he's on a low level, he won't go up. Ella shali say bishval hamatzev, since he's on such a low standing, such a low situation. In order for him to be awakened, aroused, with a raw want and a yearning to go up above. Sorry, Huli, his boinen, he needs to reflect. Not only in those matters that discuss the greatness of Hashem, which are articulated in the davening, that's not sufficient. But also in this aspect itself, that he is on a low level, he needs to reflect on his real standing, the situation in which finds himself. In order to want to go out, he has to reflect on himself, not only where he is standing, not only to experience or reflect on the greatness of Hashem, wanting to go to Hashem, but first he has to reflect on himself to realize that the level that he is at in the low level. Whether it touches the person's thought, speech, and action that he made, the levushim, the garments of the nefesh. So over there, that's the actual expression of the soul, whether it's a thought, speech, and action. Occasionally he stumbles. He fails. Even if it's action, in actual action. And for sure in the speech, and even more so for sure, a person fails sometimes in his thought. So that's as far as the levushim goes, as far as the person's garments of the nefesh goes. But also on the essence of the nefesh, the intellect of the nefesh, and the midas. Now, that is also defective sometimes to recognize that. Now, why is that important? I mean, even though the main thing is for a person's speech, thought, and action that levushim should be, but the nefesh, especially by Aben, is not perfect. It's not wholesome. So, what does it mean that he's seichel and midas that they're not so who really cares? I mean, the main thing what he does is the right thing. And the Rebbe is going to explain, yes, well, with regards to the person, uh, and what Hashem wants him to do is stay away from bad and do good, is machshava dibur maisa. But with regards to the standing of the person himself, who you are, that is important because if your seichel and midas are not proper, the actual nefesh, the seichel and midas, then that's a problem. So to realize that brings you to recognition that is a problem. So the Rebbe says like this: the Hagam she'iker avodas ha'odom, although the main avodas of the person husur meira v'asei toiv b'poel mamish is to stay away from bad and to do good in actuality, which means b'machshava dibro ma'aseh. The main thing is to use the garments, the person's thought, speech, and action to do the mitzvahs, to stay away from averis. Actually, it's not about the nefesh. The Rebbe says, this idea that the main thing is the poel mamish who benegeya lakavona de lamaila. That is as far as as it touches the intent of above what Hashem wants. Hashem wants the person in poel mamish. Avol benegeya lematzav ha'odom, but as it pertains, what is the condition? What is this person's situation? Since the intellect and emotions are connected to the soul a lot deeper than the garments, they're even more important to the soul that his seichel and midas should be proper. Im hanefesh, they are connected, united with the nefesh. Machshov, dibru ma'isa, heimrak levushim, and the machshov, the ma'isa are merely garments. Kemoish is bar baruch b'maimer hakoydim. And the previous maimer was this is a hemshech to the maimer v'nocha of achron shel Pesach. Tziyur ha seichel v'hamidas shaloi, the shape of your intellect and your emotion, whether they are in the side of holiness or on the other side, that's even more important. That touches more than your thought, speech, and action, which are just the external, the garments of the soul. That is up with regards to your standing. So while the command, the Eibishter wants you to do mitzvahs poel mamish, but where you are and what your standing is, seichel and midas are even more important. So he's reflecting on his machshava dibur ma'aseh. He's reflecting on his standing of his seichel and midas, and now he's even reflecting on his essence of his soul. Especially when he reflects how it touches, how it connects. What about the essence of his soul? That even if his thought, speech, and action, and even the emotion, the intellect are in kedusha, possible that the essence of his soul is in the depth of the klippas. So you may be external in the levushim, okay, and in kedusha, and also your seichel and midas are kedusha, but your etzem and nefesh may be stuck in the imke klippas. Okay, do abi inyan masha amar Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, as it's known in the a matter that Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai said, Eini Yedei Be'ezu Derech Malichin Eisai, I don't know in which road they lead me, whether to the road that leads to Gan Eden or the other road. Why didn't Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai know if he was a person who learned Torah, didn't all the time, and explained that he didn't know about his etzem nefesh. So possibly that you do everything good and you're all in kedusha, but your etzem nefesh is stuck somewhere else. So what happens when a person reflects on all this? You need that reflection in order to get you to want to get out of your situation. Hine al yidei shemizboinen b'chol zeh, through reflecting in all this, umar gishu b'shval hamatzu, and he senses that he is on a low level, he's in a low condition. So he is aroused with a desire, with a want to want to go out from his standing, from where he's standing, from his being, from his situation, and to go up above. Lalas Lamad. So the Rebbe says now that the Emerson, these two levels, Hamshacha of Torah and the elevation of Tefillah, are really combined with each other because, as explained before, in the level Lamaila Maila Din Ketz or Lamata Mata Din Tachlis, in the very first root, they're both included and they're both really one. That's why, as it comes out into the expression of Torah and Tefillah, there is the combination. Torah has in itself Tefillah, and Tefillah has in itself Torah. Let's look inside. Hey, so earlier in the previous Maimer, in the Maimer of Enoch of Achron Shel Pesach, these two aspects in the Eir of the Ein Sof, which is Lamai Adin Ketz Ulamata Mata Adin Tachlis, which is higher to no end, and lower to no finish. B'Sharsham Harishon, in the very first root, B'Ha'oir K'moishe Kolul B'Ha'atzmus, that the first root is the light as it is included in the Atzmus, before there is ispashtus, before there is expression to that Oir. But the Oir is within the Ma'ir, as it is. So inyan hayichayla. So there is the capabilities, the possibility. It's not yet an Oir, it's only a potential, an ability for Oir. So what are these two levels within the Oir, the way it's kolu be'atzmus, which is yichelis? Huzeh shebiyicholte laha'ir, ubiyicholte shloi laha'ir. He has the ability to shine. That would be the lamata mata adin tachlis. And he has the ability not to shine. That would be lamai adin ketz. So these two areas, this ability to shine and not to shine, is the source for a maila adin ketz, lamata mata netzachlis. But the way it is in the potential and the ability over there is not two separate matters. Since in that level of ability, Shneim, both of them, the ability to shine and the ability not to shine, which are the roots for Lamaila then Kes Matama then Tachlis, Haminyan Echad. It's just ability there, it's just the potential, and the potential they really want. Even when these levels of Lamaila Lamata, when they are extended begilui, and once it comes out revealed, they become two separate matters. The milo, lamata, mato. Higher, and lower. These are the chelis lahoyer and chelis shaloi lahoyer. But still, hem klulim zemizah. So they're included one of the other. by being two separate, but because in the Shorish Rishon, the potential Yechelis, they're both one. So even as they come out Begilui, there is still inclusion one from the other. Well, derech zeu b'Torah Tefillah. And since we explained that Torah and Tefillah is Lamata Mata Adein Kes, which is Torah, Lamai Lamala Adein Tachlis is Tefillah, that there is included from both. Shem Klulim Zeh Mizeh, that they're included one from the other. Gam b'Torah shehi hamshocha milmayla lemato, that also in Torah, which is drawing down from above to below, yesh ba inyan ha'ala milmata l'mayla. There exists in it, in Torah, there is also that mitzad hiskalelus, there is also the idea of elevation from below to above. U'kamekenu b'tfilah, and the same thing is on the other hand by davening. Shia Allah milmata l'mayla, which generally is an elevation from below to above. Sheyesh bo gam inyan ha'amshocha milmayla l'mata, which also includes in it, in the halal, also the aspect of Torah milmayla l'mata. So basically, in Torah, which is milmayla l'mata, we have also milmata l'mayla, and tefillah, which is milmata l'mayla, also milmayla l'mata, as the Rebbe will explain. Yuvon Zeh will understand it, Razal, based upon what, on the saying of our sages of blessed memory. So the Gemara brings down that Gimel Shos Rishonis Hakadosh Baruch Hu Yeshev V'Eisek B'Torah. 3 first hours of the day, the Eibishter sits and occupies in Torah. So so it's known the question about this. HaKodesh Baruch Hu Kodesh V'Shene Kenegdo. We know our sages tell us anybody who reads the Torah or learns the Mishnah, the Eibishter reads and learns corresponding to him, connected. That means whenever we learn Torah, the Eibishter is always learning Torah next to us. Since people learn Torah throughout the day, throughout the night, so the Eibishter is always learning Torah. Why are we saying that the Eibishter learns Torah only 3 hours? Bekivon sheYisrael oiskim b'Torah b'meshech kol hayom. Since the Yidden occupy themselves in Torah during the day, one is learning in 1 hour, the other one learning in another hour. So it turns out that the Eibishter is also occupied in Torah during the duration of the day. Not only those 3 hours. And yet our sages tell us HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yeshev V'Eisek B'Torah, that it's specifically in the first 3 hours that Hashem, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu sits and occupies in Torah. So how does this fit? These two sayings of the sages that the Eibishter is learning Torah 3 hours a day, and with the other saying that the Eibishter is Kodesh V'Shene, whenever a person learns, which means that the Eibishter should be learning Torah all times of the day. And the explanation is there's 2 levels in HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kodesh V'Shene. It is a response to the person, which is a Zerusa de Latato, which brings Hashem to Kodesh V'Shene, and then that which comes Milmaila on its own. The first 3 hours, the Eibishter learns on his own. It doesn't need to become a Zerusa de Latato. Let's look inside. The point of the explanation is when we say that anybody who learns and reads and learns, the Eibishter reads and learns corresponding to them, that is bringing down from above through the arousal below. You had to learn Torah to bring down that Kodesh Baruch Hu Shoyne. That's the occupation of Torah of the person. And therefore, ha'hamshocha lifi erech ha'isaruso delatato. What you bring down is relative, is according to the arousal below. The Eibishter learns kenegdoi to correspond to you, so you're mamshich. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kodesh V'Shone relative through your avodah, through your learning. That's why it says, Kol HaKoyre V'Shoyne HaKadosh Baruch Hu Koyre V'Shoyne Kenegdoi. It doesn't just say he reads and learns, but it's Kenegdoi that corresponds to the person. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Koyre V'Shoyne Hu Kenegdoi. This that the Eibishter reads and learns, that is Kenegdoi, correspond to Lifi Halimud HaOdom. That goes based upon what the person is studying. So that's Isarusa de Latata that brings about the Isarusa de Leil. The fact that in the first 3 hours the Eibishter sits and occupies in Torah, he hamshocha milmaylo mitzad atzma. That is extends from above on its own, nothing to do with the person. This is Eibishter is mamshich milmaylo, learning Torah. That is from such a place where the arousal of below cannot reach there. So, what is the purpose of that? That hamshocha from above is giving the person the power. That first, that he should be able to learn Torah, occupy in Torah. That he should be able to learn Torah, and also that his learning Torah, his occupation in Torah, should accomplish that the Eibishter should be Koyre V'Shoyne Kenegdoi. This is part of what the Hamshocha, the Gimel Shos Rishonis, when Hashem learns on his own. It's Arusa Deleil on his own. And this basically, the Rebbe is going to say, is the 2 levels in Torah. We call it Tau, which comes on its own. This is like the first Gimel Shos. And then Motor comes through Lemato, through the Eid Yalam in Oris, the Serusa de Latata, to bring down the Motor. That's Tal is Loim Etzer, never stops. It comes from above. But the Motor needs Avodah Sa'odah. Zehu, and this is what the pasuk says, the 2 equation of the Torah, that Yarev Kamotor Likhi, that Likhi, my Torah, shall drip like rain, and Tizal Katal, it'll drip like dew. Imrosi, my saying, the Torah is compared here in this pasuk to both, to rain and to dew and to tal. The achiluk bein talu motor hu. What's the difference between dew and rain? The rain comes down, depends on the service. The person has to behave, and it's up to the sarusa delatata of the person. The motor should come down. If you listen to Hashem, we say in the second portion of the Kriyas Shema, the pasuk says, then I will give you the rain. So the rain comes as a result of the Avodah Sodom. But Vital ain't told about Avodah Sodom. But Tal does not hinge on the service of the man. As the sages tell us, Tal never stops. So the same thing is the Torah compared to Motor and Tal in the spiritual aspect. The motor he hamshocha shal dei sarusa delatato. Rain is what's drawn down through the sarusa delatato from the arousal of below. It's the person's learning, which is HaKadosh Baruch Hu Sheira Kenegdoi. V'tal hi hamshocha l'maylo mitzad atzma. Tal is the dew that comes from above on its own. It's like the first 3 hours that the Eibishter learns. V'atam. Why is the Torah equated? Because Torah has both aspects. It has the aspects of Tal and has the aspect of Motor. A rain has dew and rain. In Torah we have both matters, both aspects in Torah. Hadarga the Torah shenimshechas al yidei esak haTorah de ha'adam. We have the level of Torah which extend through the occupation of Torah by the person, which means the what you're mamshich through limud Torah, that's Yariv Kamotor, that's like the rain, which is a response to the person's learning, brings down the hamshocha of above. Then you have a level in Torah which comes down from above. That comes in a way of arousal on its own. That's tizal katal imrosi. It'll drip like dew, maise. Now, so why Epes is the Amshochem El Maila on its own is Gimel Shoes? Why the 3 hours? Bezui Ashayches da Kodesh Baruch Hu Yeshu Be'esek Batoiro Li Gimel Shoes Rishonis. And this is the connection when HaKadosh Baruch Hu learns Torah for this specifically, like the dew is the first 3 hours. Kishoirish Hageshem Motor Hu Bezayin Tachtoin is the Atik. The root of rain of Geshem, which is motor, as it says, but in this pasuk, Yarif Kamotor Likhi. So the motor, which is Geshem, who bezayin tachtoin is the Atik. That's the 7 lower levels in Atik. Ki Yudua, as known, be'inyan shivasayim ke'er shivasayomim. It says 7 times like the light that was in the 7 days of creation, that in the future there will be, it's 7 times as much. So how much is 7 times 7? The shivasayim who are boim v'tesha. Shivasayim means 49. V'shivasayim, and 7 times ke'er shivasayomim, 7 times 7 is memtes omim zayin. So that is 49 times 7. Shivasayim is 49, because 7 times 7. 49 times ka'ir shivasayim of 7. And that is Bigimatria Geshem, which is 343. That is 7 times 49. So the Mizem movement, that is connected to the 7 lower levels of Atik. The Mizem movement, Geshem Shaykh L'Shivas Hayomim. So that, from this I understand that Geshem has a connection to the Shiva Sayomim, which Shem Zayin Tachtein is the Atik, which is the 7 lower levels of Atik. So the Rebbe explains, according to Kabbalah, Geshem fits in with the number 7, the 7 Tachtein is the Atik, and that's why that is the latter 7, is when Kodesh Baruch Hu Kodesh V'Shoyne connected like rain, like motor, Tizal, Yarav Kamotolik. The Shoyrish Hatal and the root of Tal begimel Rishonis the Atik. That's in the first 3 levels of Atik. That corresponds to the Gimel Shoyes. The Zui HaShaychus, and that's the connection that Kodesh Baruch Hu Yeshev Ve'esek B'Torah. That Eibers the Yeshev Ve'esek B'Torah, which is level Tal Toy the Torah, the Gimel Shoyes Rishonis. That's the first 3 hours. Ki Gimel Shoyes Rishonis. Because the first 3 shows, Sem Gimel Rishonos, the Atik, are the 3 first level of Atik, the Chochma Bin Odas in Atik, versus the 7 Midos of Geshem. So basically, this fits in. The Rebbe talked about the 2 levels of Tal and Motor in Torah, the way it comes Misrus Tat, and the way it comes like Tal, Loy Me'atzer, comes Milmaila. And that also is connected, that motor is connected to the 3 hours. The Tal is connected to the first 3 hours, Gimel Shos Rishonis, because that corresponds to the Gimel Rishonis of Atik. And Geshem is connected to the Zayin Tachtenis, the Atik, as the Rebbe brings down. It's Shivasayim is 7 times 7, and this is 7 times 7 times 49, which is the Gematria Geshem. So this all fits in with the 2 aspects of Tal and Motor, the 2 levels of Torah, the one that comes B'hamshocha Milmayla Lamata, and the one on its own, and the one that is drawn down through like the Geshem.